Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Emma's Market Spotlight on Belgium. It's really great to see so many of you here. My name is Michelle Ronquillo, and I am Emma's event manager. Just a little bit about us. Within Emma, we unite music managers organizations across 13 European countries, which represent more than 2,000 managers across Europe. We've made it our mission to strengthen European managers globally through our Empower program, which encompasses education, advocacy, networking, and research. If you want to know more or if you want to stay up to date with the upcoming events, make sure to visit our website, follow us on social media, join our WhatsApp group, sign up to our newsletter. I will put all the links in the chat in a little bit. Within the chat, there is also a General's Manager contact list where you can leave your contact details if you want to get acquainted with the people attending this event and some others, and also find the details of others. And also, when you log off Zoom at the end of the session, super brief survey will pop up. So please take a moment to fill it out, as your feedback is super important for us. I'm going to share the agenda of the event. Please let me know that you can see it. Today's session is being moderated by our Executive Director, Jess Partridge. And there will be time for your questions at the end of the session, but please make sure to write them in the chat so we make sure that that they get answered. And yeah, so over to you, Jess, to introduce our stellar panel today.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I know that it's clashing with the Euros and everything like that, so any football fans might be struggling to make it, but we appreciate those of you that are here. So yeah, today we are talking about the Belgian market and finding out a bit more about it. It's a really interesting market and pretty unique in the way that it operates. So yeah, we'll definitely dive into that. Before we go into everything, I just want to shout out to the Belgian MMF. I'll put a link in the chat so you can check them out. If you are from Belgium and you are a manager, you should definitely look at joining. They're a great organization, have helped out a lot with this. So yeah, definitely do that. I'm really happy to have Julien and Roel here today, who are going to give you a little overview of the market, much better than I ever could, give you just a short presentation so you can understand more of the ins and outs. And after that, we will introduce all the panelists and go into questions. If you think of any questions, even during the presentation, you are very welcome to just pop them in the chat and I will make sure that they're answered during. And of course, as you signed up, you submitted lots of questions, so we'll make sure we tackle those as well. Thanks again for joining us, Julien and Roel. If you could take it away, that would be great.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Roel. Thanks for having us. I work for Vibe, which is, as you can see, the central advice point for artists and the music industry in Flanders and Brussels. We work for amateurs and professionals. We work on a local and international level. And we work for all genres except for classical music. What do? We give advice, we do research, education, policy making. We try to create opportunities for musicians, which also involves a network. And we also try to build networks within the music industry and organize the music industry awards. We don't have a lot of time, but if you have questions about specific contexts that you're looking for, you can drop me an email anytime. It's roel@vibe.
Thank you, Roel. So I'm Julien Fournier. I'm the director of WBM, which is acting like an export office. So we are supporting the industry at large. We are working with recorded music, live music, and we've been specializing, on sync for a few years as well. We work only with professionals, which is a difference from Vibe, who also do kind of amateur, and before they are actually like traveling the world. We only do this part, so the export one. We do all music genres, so like young audiences, hip hop, classical music, contemporary music. We're working with all of these, and we are actually a public service. We are part of a bigger organization that is called Wallonie-Bruxelles International. So WBM is Wallonie-Bruxelles Musiques. It's the agency for music for Wallonie-Bruxelles International. So we are tasked with supporting the whole industry whenever they had a little tour in Belgium and they want to go abroad, a little success in Belgium and they want to go abroad. Last year, we have worked in 36 different events throughout the world, mostly Europe and mostly close to Belgium. 26 have been international and 10 have been in Belgium. We might talk a little bit about that later. Together with Vibe, with Roel and all the team at Vibe, we are 5 at Wallonie-Bruxelles Music. I'm just the director. We do Belgium Booms, which is kind of our brand for Belgium when we go abroad. But as you will see in the presentation, Belgium is really almost like 2 countries in one. But when we go abroad, we go together as Belgium Booms. And I just mentioned as well that of course we are tasked with export, but we can also do a little bit of import on the side. It means that if you need help and support with like the Belgian scene, we can always answer specific questions anytime, not only in this discussion. So you can also send me an email to Julien at wbm.p.
Some general facts maybe. We are 11.7 million people in Belgium. Key cities are Brussels, Antwerp, Ghent, and in the French-speaking part, Liège and Charleroi. As you can see on the map, there is a Dutch-speaking part in the north of the country for around 60%. Then you have a French-speaking part in the country of around 40%. We even have a very small percentage of the country where they speak German. And in the middle of the country, there is Brussels, or capital, where people mainly speak French, but also Dutch. The bad news is that we are a very complex country. We have, for example, 6 governments. Why am I telling you all this? Sorry? Okay, I continue. Why am I telling you this? Because it's almost like 2 different markets. Historically, I think Wallonia is much more orientated towards France, while people from Flanders are more orientated to Holland in a cultural way, and to lesser extent to the UK. That doesn't mean necessarily that you need to have like 2 bookers or 2 labels or 2 PR people, because most companies in that field operate on a national level, I would say. But when you think about export, I think it's very important that you always keep those cultural differences in mind, but we will also tell you more about that later. The good news is that according to a recent study by Eurosonic, Belgium is the country that is most open to European talent or talent from abroad. In my previous life, I was a booker at Live Nation, and agents always told me that Belgium is one of the first countries to break an act. So I think the live market is definitely one of the interesting points to enter our market. And yeah, Julien can tell you a little bit more about that.
Yes, of course. Well, the live market in Belgium is, of course, mostly represented by its huge number of festivals. So it's probably through the festivals that your artists will enter the Belgian scene first. We have around 200 to 300 festivals a year, which for 11 million people population is pretty huge. And some of them you might have heard about already, like Rock Werchter, which is a 4 days and 88,000 people capacity. It focuses on all music genres, but it's mostly rock. It's a pretty old festival. It could be compared to Roskilde or Glastonbury for those who know it. And it's been co-founded by Herman Scherman and Hedwig de Meyer. And now these two guys have made a company that's called Stageco, and they do international staging with offices all over the world, with stages for the Pope, the Stones, or U2. So pretty big player in this regard. Tomorrowland, which you see as well here, is pretty well known and very international. It's got 400,000 people spread over 2 weekends. So it's 3 days each. So it's 6 days, but 400,000 people. So it's close to Antwerp in the north of the country. It's very well known for its world famous lineup for mainly EDM and techno. They have winter editions in Alpe d'Huez and also an edition in Brazil. Grass Pop, which I think has just started a few hours ago. It's 135,000 people on 3 days, as the baseline is pretty clear. It's Grass Pop Metal Meeting. It's mostly around metal music. You have Pickle Pop, which is younger audiences than Werchter, which we've seen, but it's kind of the second biggest general festival. So you have lots of different music genres there, but it's directed at younger audience. It could be compared to Reading, Leeds, or Lowlands. Those 4 happen in Flanders, but we also, of course, have festivals in the southern part of Belgium. 2 of the biggest ones are, well, first in the middle, I'll start with them because, well, you'll understand later why. Dour Festival, which is 50,000 people over a 4-day period. Yeah, that's a 5-day period, but 1 day is a bit shorter. It will happen in the middle of July. It's I think Mathieu can tell me if it's like the 35th or edition or something. It's pretty
25
old.
years.
25, yeah. 25, yeah. Sorry, so 25 years, and it focuses on well, electronic hip hop and indie rock, but it's got rock is making a comeback there. This is one of our main collaboration throughout the year with the Wallonie-Bruxelles Musiques is with Dour. Les Ardentes, the first one that you see here on the left, is a festival that's been that had a lot of music genres, but has now focused solely on hip hop. It's got 60,000 people a day on a 4-day period. And well, of course, those were the big ones, but you see one of the smaller ones here on the slide. It's called Mea Kuzma. It's happening at the end of August in the eastern part of Belgium, in the German-speaking part of Belgium. This is a festival that is focused on niche electronic music. It's very well renowned. It's got a lot of connections with Germany, and it's the lineups are really stellar every year. It's a pleasure to see what they've chosen, because it's a really very precise lineup that they have there. We Are Open is something that happens in February in Antwerp. We also have been inviting professionals to this events for a few years with Vibe. This is 2 days totally dedicated to Belgian music, and well, you should keep an eye on that as well. And of course, one of the kind of, they're not newcomers anymore, but they came later. It's a 50 Lab. This is happening in November. It's like for us, it's yeah, the one for emerging artists that we have. It's in Brussels in November. It's over 3 days, and yeah, we are currently working on inviting new professionals for this event for this year. And then you have some smaller ones or more precise ones in different music genres, with world music, with Couleur Café, Sphinx, Reggae Réel, or Esperanza. In jazz, you also have Yen Jazz or Gom Jazz, and in folk you have Dranouter and Bruxelles, and then you also have, of course, all the city festivals. Yeah, Belgian Booms works mostly with the 2 that you have you see here, which are 50 Lab and We Are Open. That's something that we do together with Vibe.
And I think another good moment to network with Belgians is our Belgian Booms drink at Eurosonic,
True.
which is for us a very important showcase festival because it's close to Holland.
Yeah.
So if you want to meet Belgians, always welcome.
Yeah, and just one, excuse me, Roel, just
go
one
ahead.
thing is I forgot to tell you that this year the EGC, the European Jazz Conference, whom some of you might know, the huge jazz conference happening in different countries every year. It's happening in Ghent in Belgium this year in November. So we will be close to that as well and working. Well, Vibe is mostly working with that, but we're giving support as well.
I already mentioned that agents said that Belgium often is the first or one of the first countries to break an act. I think one of the reasons is because we have subsidized club circuit, which is subsidized by the government. I think in almost every province you have a very well equipped concert hall, let's say, or at least one with a capacity between 300 and 600 people. Exit tour in Belgium, most of the time they play only 1 or 2 shows because we're a small market, but there are exemptions, of course. I think the key venues to play in Brussels are Ancien Belgique, which has a club capacity 250 and a main hall 2000, or Botanique, which is capacity 150, 300 and 650. We also, of course, have our arenas like Lotto, Forest National, Sportpaleis, let's say between capacity 4,000 and 20,000, and we have one big stadium for 50,000 people. Maybe interesting to know, besides the, let's say, rock circuit or club circuit, we also have a lot of cultural centers, almost in like every city or town in Belgium. They often program like theater, comedy, but also music. It's often for an older audience, often also older artists or in specific niches like worldwide. For example, just like everywhere, the ticket prices are of course going up here fast. Then maybe, Julien, let's have a look at the players between all those behind all those concerts. You have, of course, Live Nation, who also own Ticketmaster here at the moment, and also own a lot of festivals like Graspop and Rockwerchter. You have Greenhouse Talent. They are not owned by AEG, but they are quite close to AEG. Tomorrowland, of course, which is still an independent company. And then if you can go back, Julia. No,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Mm.
Just before COVID, 2 big players came into the market, FKP Scorpio, which is originally a German promoter, but now also operating strongly on a European level. And you have All Things Live, a Nordic promoter who bought a local talent agency called Busker. So what we see is there's much more competition since a few years on the market, which is quite new to us. Besides that, you also have a lot of cool indie agencies. Some are specialized, like Tineke from Grigri, which we will hear later. But you also have Tupertu, back in the days, Nada, Curious, Liquiid, Gold. If you're looking for specific contacts or if you want a list of those agencies, once again, feel free to give it to mail us.
Yes, thank you, Roel. We're going to go pretty quickly on the labels. Of course, as in most countries, it's divided between the three. The big players are Universal, Warner, and Music, but you can also find smaller labels that are really interesting, like 62. You have News, which is quite mainly a distribution company, but they have worked with smaller labels in electronic music, RNS, that you can see, PIAS, of course, whom you'll hear about later as well, Beggars Group, V2, and Kramt. Kramt is specialized in global music as well. when you look at the figures here, you can see that it's about 120 million. That's the total of the income of recorded music in Belgium, with a growth of 11% compared to 2022. Those are, of course, the numbers of 23. We can also see that the turnover is mostly driven by digital music. Only 12.6% is physical, but it should be said that we're still lagging in terms of streaming. This is due to several causes, but some of them are that we don't really have an office for Spotify or Apple Music in Belgium. It's located in Holland, and this makes the connections very hard for us to reach. And also we couldn't, I mean, the big telecom players couldn't sell telephones with an abonnement, like a subscription to one of these services for a lot of years, due to a legal reason in Belgium that also made the adoption of streaming a bit smaller in our country. Spotify is extremely dominant, with Apple and Deezer, who have a really small market share. And yeah, the physical sales stabilizes thanks mostly to the rise of vinyl sales. Yeah.
The next slide.
Yeah, I forgot to put on the. I forgot to move through the slides where I was talking. I'm sorry, but you'll send that. I'll send that through.
One of the questions was also, what do Belgians listen to? I think in general, the audience is very open-minded here. We listen to all kinds of music. You see here the top 10, which I guess won't be that different from other European markets. But there's one big difference. You see a lot of French rap in the list, and that was I was mentioning earlier on. The Wallonia is much more orientated towards the French market. As you can see, I think in general, the division between local talent and international talent on streaming services is like 50-50. So yeah, we're quite open to international talent. Maybe something about publishing and sync. The publishers, they're united in an association called the Belgian Music Publishers Association. Those are both majors and independents. Most labels have their in-house publishing, like News, Warner, Universal, Sony, etc. Maybe Ineke can also say something about it later on. But I think in general, we don't have a lot of publishers or music supervisors. I think there's still room for development over here, or a lot of publishers are rather fulfilling an administrative role. So I think that's definitely a point to work on. The PRO company in our country is called Sabam. While playwrights, they are responsible for neighboring rights. I guess you're all familiar with the copyright directive. I'm not gonna explain it into detail, but Belgium is quite different in that way. There's a big argument going on between the PROs and the labels. Yeah, for those interested in it, I can tell something about it later on, or you can just mail me, but it's quite technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're already past the time now, so I'll make it very quick. Of course, as Roel said, we can answer any questions. If it's not now because there's no more time and there's football, you can yeah, send an email later and we'll answer these questions. Of course, so the media scene in Belgium is also divided between Flanders and Wallonia. So we both have our specialties, but we can see that in general in Belgium, of course, there's a lot of use of social media. We still watch a lot of linear TV, as you can see, almost 92% still do. Streaming, broadcast, and all these new ways of listening to Music and radio are also well established, but not less than 50%, as you can see. The broadcasting service, the public broadcasting services are still going very strong in Wallonia and in Flanders. Radio is still quite a big promoter of festival and concerts. They are partners in a lot of them, in a lot of these festivals, and you can hear about them all day throughout the radio, which is still a bit strange in this day and age, but they still do. The main players in Flanders very quickly are Radio 2. You can see here all the numbers for 2023. It's Radio 2 and Q Music. Radio 2 is mostly a family radio. Q Music, Joe and M&M that you can see, VRT, M&M and Joe. They are commercial pop music and hits, but they also play hip hop and R&B. Radio 1 is mainly news and information, but they're also focusing on some quality indie music for an older audiences. Studio Brussels is pretty interesting. It's more qualitative and more alternative music, from hip hop to electronic music and some hard guitars. In Wallonia, it's really we can go very quickly over that, because there's not that many connections between actual music consumption and global radio. It's mostly old music and very commercial stuff that is being played on the radio, with the exception, very notable exception, of radio that we don't see here, but it's called Jam, and I'll send it over to you later on, because they are really working on the sort of music that we are pushing, that a lot of emerging bands and a lot of very interesting shows that are broadcasted on this.
Well, I think in general, radio is still, at least in Flanders, still quite important over here, and that bookers from venues or festivals, they still look at it. I'll keep it short. For the rest, television is difficult. We don't have a lot of specialized television shows, unfortunately. You have a few quality newspapers. You have, of course, a few cool indie blogs, etc. And in terms of social media use, I don't think we're not very different from other countries. YouTube is still quite dominant. Facebook still important. Also, it depends, of course, on the age. Instagram is leaning a little bit back, and TikTok is, of course, the new upcoming winner. Maybe to finalize this, I can also mention that EME, the Association of Export Offices, they also publish market studies from time to time. At the moment, we're working on one about Belgium. So I guess that will be published at the end of this year.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I wanted to mention here. I put all the invitation that we're doing with Belgium Booms for like international professionals, so you can look these festivals up. And also there's one website that's called idlm.be, and that is a repertoire of all of our part of the country's music professionals. So you can look that up if you are looking for any person's contacts. You might find it. You should find it there. That's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. If you just stop sharing, perfect. And I'm not sure if we've lost you, Roel, but maybe. We can't see you at the moment, or at least I can't.
Yeah, cool. Oh yeah, Roel is gone.
I'm still here.
We'll see. There you are.
I'm back.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, super, loads and loads of stuff to dig into. We already have at least one question, so let's get started. I would love for the rest of the panel to introduce themselves. I will go around one by one. Tineke, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hey, nice to meet you all. I'm Tineke. I mainly work in world music, or global sounds as we call them these days. I support booking agents and management agencies, and I have my own festival as well.
And what's your festival called? Sorry, just so that we can look it up, make sure we know.
It's It's called Cocopelli Festival, which is quite smaller than all the other festivals who were mentioned. But that's something I wanted to say, that a lot of festivals happen in the scene of voluntary people who do this as a kind of a hobby in Belgium. So that's also a market for smaller bands to get to know, but later.
Awesome. Thank you. Matthew?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hope it's not too noisy. They decided to make a sound check. Can you hear me well, or you hear the sound?
We hear
Okay,
you.
because
Totally
it's a nightclub just next to me. So I'm doing the bookings. I'm running an agency called Liquiid Agency, and we are basically doing two things. We are doing music consultancy for festivals and events, such as a duo festival, Wheel of Green in Paris, Peacock Society in Paris, Initial in Bordeaux, and other festivals. And then we are promoting our own festival or collaborative festival. And we have three festivals. We have 50 Lab. We have a festival running by Kiosk Radio, which is the community radio in Brussels, called Woodblocks. It's happening in September. And we also have a rap hip-hop festival, really avant-garde, really small festival called Grunt, which is happening end of August in Brussels. So we are basically doing bookings, lineups, creative direction, and promoting festivals.
Great, thank you. Ineke? Ineke, sorry.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ineke. I have been at Brede Gensem for more than half of my life. So let's leave it at that. And I've done several things. I've also been looking after the Belgian promotion and marketing department, but I've also been running international half-time in London. And I've also been responsible for all the PIAS nights in Europe, about 160 that we did. And lately I've been involved with our brand communications, our global brand communications. So yeah, we have offices around the world, 270 people in total. And I look after the internal and external global communication. But aside of that, I've also been on the board of Vibe for a few years. And the last years I've been doing a lot of panels and workshops and masterclasses for young professionals, young managers, or young artists. I do also guest lectures and jury sessions, etc. So yeah, that'll be it.
So much experience, and yeah, thank you all for joining us, because such high level and years of experience in here that is really, really useful. So I wanted to start off with you, Matthew. Actually, 50 Lab obviously is an incredible event. It's gaining a lot of attention. How, and obviously you have other festivals. I would love to know more about how you work with international artists, what the opportunities for international artists are within your events.
Yeah, so there's a lot of so we wanted to imagine a festival which is not similar as what's happening outside. So we imagined a festival where we ask other festival bookers to co-curate or co-program or co-choose the lineup with us. So every year we ask 20 festival bookers, from big festivals to middle ones to really niche or small size festival, to submit us their musical crush of the year, and we build a lineup with that. So for international acts, it's a third of the lineup is chosen by other festivals like Deckmantel, Sonar, to really small things. We try to not have more than 2 festivals per country. This is a third. Then another third is for Belgian acts, mostly divided into Flemish and French-speaking from Wallonia artists. And the third is chosen by us. And of course, it's a question of musical crush. It's a question of what we like. We are a big team. We're not doing the lineup only. I mean, not only one person. We have a big file where everybody from the team can put in his choices or his discoveries, and we choose. It's around 65, 70 acts to book. So let's say it's 25 that we choose on our own. And yeah, it can be something that we discover somewhere, or that just a SoundCloud link that we receive, and we dig a bit and try to see a live show, and we decide to invite her or him or them at the festival.
And when do you publish the list of other festivals that you work with that are booking, or do you keep it a secret?
So first year we choose the 20, and year 2 we asked the 20 for year 1 to choose the one for year 2, so they pass the baton, and now we are year 5, and we decided to refresh the list because sometimes there's a festival that already came back and stuff, so we just decided to redistribute the cards, and every 5 years we're gonna do that, because otherwise we try to keep a balance. Also, you have to know that we try to have a gender balance in the bookers, which is quite not easy. And with the thing of the passing buttons, we can't control that. So the first 4 years, we just asked the people who came to choose, and now we are refreshing the list and do another new balance of festivals we want to invite.
Great. Thanks for that, and any tips that you can give in the chat or anything like that about how international artists might contact you if they're looking to be booked for one of your festivals, that would be very useful. So we'll stick on the live theme, but Tineke, or what experience do you have of the live scene, and what would you recommend to artists that were kind of coming into it? Is there particular cities? I mean, we saw that there were 4 recommended, and yeah, just tell us more about that.
I think the anchor cities were already shown in the presentation. So those are like the big cities, like in Belgium, Ghent, Antwerp, Brussels, for sure. It depends a bit on where your focus is and what kind of music you play. For instance, like global music is not that much played everywhere. My festival is near Kortrijk, which is like close to Bruges, and it means that we do world music, but not much people in our area know the concept of world music. So if it's the first time you can come to our festival, but it will be difficult to find like a venue or something else where you can play for an audience. So generally, I would say festivals are good, and Belgium is not that big actually. So I think any place routing wise or venue wise or festival wise is a good place to play. It also depends on how you promote it, and if the venue, like Mathieu said, they also promote with other festivals, so that's important as well. But I think mainly all places are good to play. Everything is not that far. If you drive 3 hours, you're on the other side of the country. So if the traffic is all right, of course, but I think that's in life. Yeah, you can find in every village you have a festival or a thing. I think you just need to be careful if you come for the first time and you play a local fun fair. It will be different. It's not good for promotion, you know. It can work, but I think it's better to play a decent festival or somewhere. It can be good to have some miles on your, you know, on your account, but mainly I think watch out. If you have to watch out, it's watch out where you play and what you do. You have a lot of pubs who do also live music, but not always in the best conditions. So it might be good to have like something for some fans if you already have some fans to play in a pub, but it's not always the best place if you want to invite
Be prepared.
other promoters or other people. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that. Ineke, in terms of what you've seen work and be effective, I know that you've worked with some huge bands. Why do you think it is that Belgian people really embrace new artists and bring them up like that? Because I know that you've worked with editors, for instance, who had a huge audience within Belgium.
I'll get to that in a second, if that's okay. I just quickly want to finish at the end of also the question to Tineke and to Mathieu. I think it's really important. I feel that when you look at going into Belgium, that you need to think about your timing and you need to think about your distribution of efforts and money. And I really truly feel that it's up to you. And I would also say that to Belgian managers who are looking to go abroad with their artists, I think it's up to you, and by you, I mean the artist and the manager, I'll see you as one together, right? To find your scene locally, obviously first, but that it starts locally, and it starts with finding your own scene in your own territory. And if you're doing what you're doing well, and you are getting, you know, that is being rippled out, as it says, then I think it's important that will then, you know, your local booker may know a local booker in Belgium, and or you may meet artists of your worlds, and you then play at same festivals. And I do think it's important that there is a kind of seed being, you know, being dropped into Belgium. For the reason also Tineke says, you want to know a little bit where you're going to play. Are we doing this for the right reason? If you're going to get paid loads of money and you'll see it as like a deluxe rehearsal, by all means do it. But if it's going to cost you a lot of money and literally nobody is really knowing who you are and we're not sure it's the right place, then I would say maybe that's not the right time. Maybe you need to wait and, you know, work harder on your own story, and, you know, good things will come through. The good things will pass through. And I just find that in general, I think that's there's a lot to say about timing. And we all know the showcase festivals and the ones you can hit, and you can have all those things, but you could still be coming in really cold. And I think that's not how it works. I don't think record labels, I don't think people like Mathieu respond to an email with an artist band that nobody of his peers has told him about, none of the DJs he listens to. It is always a combination of a few things. And I don't think the cold coming in thing is always the best move. That's just my thing. I think it's a lot to say about saving your efforts for the right time, you know? When it comes about why some of the artists that I worked with were particularly successful in Belgium, as Roel said, we definitely don't have the only ones. I do think that we have some examples where, you know, the first albums, the first gold records that Ineke or Moby had were in Belgium. I think the first gold record Sigur Rós had was in Belgium. And of course, we have Editor Story, which is quite crazy, which led them to headlining Werchter 4 times in the last 10 years. So that's quite exceptional. I've always been able to define what the elements were that led to that. That doesn't mean that there is a formula in there that you can just apply, and especially not in today's world, you know. But I do think that it was, first of all, a radio system that was the, you know, the envy of every territory in Europe. You literally could hear 9 Inch Nails at 9 a.m. in the morning in Belgium back in the day. I'm not sure if it's still, you know, I don't think those radio stations would do that now. But more importantly, radio had that massive impact as well. If you were hotshot on Studio Brussels on Friday, you know you were going to fly the next week, you know? And if you had that with a few singles, then I think combined with some serious press, and for any of our alternative bigger artists, we would have like 9, 10 interviews, half pages in national newspapers. None of that is the case anymore today. And I don't think, but more importantly, I don't think the radio has that power today. I'm not going to say they're not important, but I do think they're part of a bigger mix of things that are happening today. And it's definitely not the case that they could just make a hit on their own. That's not the case. I think there's a lot more going on of invisible worlds and invisible scenes that we don't know anything about often, or, you know, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But it's not as clear cut and as clearly defined, if that makes sense.
Have you seen anyone do anything particularly good, or any clear examples? You can think about it for a minute while I ask another question if you want.
Yeah, you mean lately, or?
Yeah, more lately, like anything that you've seen that has been really effective.
I genuinely think that there is, for me, what we focus on a lot, what we try to really look at heavily at PIAS is that we have invested quite a bit in our audience development teams. We really want to know who the artist's audience is. You know, we create DNA profiles, and it's really a clever way of trying to find out, you know, who the audience is of these artists. And I find it always baffling to read because it goes quite far, you know, it goes quite far about not just who they are and what they look like, and, you know, but also what else they are listening to and what else they're reading, etc. And I think we spend a lot of time in that because we do believe that if your artist speaks to an audience of between 12 and 20, then you need to know what platforms you need to be on, you know, and whether you like it or not, you will need to have to, you know, your artist will need to live on TikTok, and that's just how it's going to be. And I think that the same goes for artist managers. I think if you have things like Spotify for artists at your disposal, that's like a wealth of information, you know, that you didn't have before, and your artist may have millions of streams, but if you don't read into the data and you don't know where they're coming from, whether they're just playlist hits, or whether they're coming from the artist profile, that's a huge difference. You know, we don't really you look blindly at the millions of streams. I think it's important to read into them. What is the audience that we have? You know, who are they? Oh, we need to play in Liège, and we definitely should stay away from Antwerp. And oh, it's much more male than any of the artists thought, you know? Or it's just so much information that you can get from that. And again, it's like really important when you're going to use time and effort and money, especially also for artists, for everybody, you know? And if you don't use the data for what they are, then it's just a low sale, a low digital sale, you know, Spotify. So that's a shame.
Sorry, sorry to cut you off, but we will quickly move on just because there's quite a lot to get through and not much time at all. Matthew, I wanted to come back to you just quickly in terms of fees. There's a question about like, do you have any insight on the fees? Any kind of peculiarities about Belgian contracts, for instance, exclusion clauses or anything like that? It'd be great to hear more.
It's quite what regarding the exclusivity. Of course, it depends who you are and what you pretend and what your expectations and stuff. And of course, every festivals try to be unique and not to share. But as Julien or Roel said before, we are two countries, so of course. With two different music taste and different music effects. So we have also a really big French connection in terms of music. So we also have a lot of French-speaking artists who are not known in the Flemish part. So we can all share with Flanders. It's the case of Stromae or Angèle, but because they also want to be international and playing in the other side. When you speak one language, which is not English, it's important. So we have kind of a healthy thing on that level of artist. Same for, I don't know, Oscar and the Wolf, even if he's singing in English, he wants to be someone in the French part is from Flemish, so he's from Flanders, so we can share. Of course, for big headliners, international wine, we try to keep them unique and to get a thing. But otherwise, when you're a young artist, you're an emerging act, or you're even a middle thing, you try to set a tour. Of course, we try to help you, and we don't want to block you on anything. We are also, here to help you. Belgium is also a quite open-minded and really welcoming country, so we can we have exclusivity things, but on the big players level.
Not so much on the lower, because you know, in the UK we have a lot of exclusivity for even support acts. Like even if you're supporting a local act,
it's not the case. It's not the case here. Yeah, and especially also for DJs who are traveling a lot. So we try to get some windows where they are not really in the country, but depends also the level for the DJ. But normally we try to we are quite cool.
You're quite relaxed, and the fees, like if you're coming over as a new artist, maybe you can sell a few tickets. Like what because your venues are subsidized, obviously, does it mean that there are more pay or not?
Well, I think it depends on the level and the kind of club that you're playing. I think when you're playing a big club, which is like capacity 250, I think the fee normally is between, let's say, 800 and 1,500 euros.
Okay.
But if you're playing like in a local pub, then it can be 200 euros as well. But I think on that club level of, let's say, the professional clubs, the fees will be between 800 and 1,250 euros. And yeah, let's say for 650 capacity venues, around 4,000 euros, something like that. So I think that's in line with the rest of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get much nicer food though in the backstage.
That's absolutely, yeah, that's true. That's one of the
And
reasons
beers.
why bands
Well,
love to come to
Matthew's
Belgium.
But
like,
Mathieu
no,
is
I
saying
don't
no.
agree.
No, I say yes. I say we
Okay,
are
okay.
we also have kind of way of welcoming people.
No,
and,
but I think it's something to mention because we all hear that from all the international artists, whereby they literally get 2 lukewarm beers in their dressing room, and then they get to Belgium and they get like a full fridge, and there's local little snacks and there's nice food. Somebody's actually cooking, like a person who knows how to cook. And yeah, so we do get a lot of hospitality compliments, I think.
Yeah, and also I think a big difference what I saw when a band is touring in US, we always or almost always provide hotels for international artists, which is mostly not the case in US. So that's also important to know.
Really, really isn't. It also, I want to note the kind of the stuff that's been happening in the chat for anyone who's not looking at the chat or anyone who's watching this on recording. Also, yeah, so there's 18% artist tax with an exemption of 400 euros per musician, which I think, again, is a really important point. We're looking at this a lot at Emma anyway, but there's also exemption for US and French artists because you have a great relationship with the French. So it makes it easier for those to tour in Belgium as well. So I just wanted to, well, we're really running out of time now. So if anyone has any last minute questions, this is time for you. And thank you so much for answering questions in the chat as well. You mentioned some of the peculiarities and actually, Julien, when you were speaking in the presentation, you said specifically that we would maybe look at some of the kind of cultural differences between the two sides. Is there anything to note? And also based around language, obviously you do have a great relationship with the French, and French language music we could see is hugely, hugely popular. But other than that, is there anything to note, like English speaking music is fine, or any other trends that you see?
Yeah, we are definitely a bit better on French-speaking music than we have been like 20 years ago. I mean, in the southern part of Belgium, that's mainly due to the quotas that have been put in place in France like 20 or 25 years ago, and that made a lot of French artists record in French again. So we are kind of, I mean, our part of the country is really very culturally attached to France. So most of us have grown listening to French radio, looking at French television. In terms of politics, there's also some things that come first in France and then come to us. But that's just our part of Belgium. This is for me the most striking thing between Flanders and Wallonia, because in a lot of aspects we have the same culture, but it's mostly the connection that we have with France is something that is very different in the northern and southern part of Belgium. And for us, for instance, more than 60% of our exports are done to France, and ironically, and it's a bit weird, and we're trying to fight this in several ways, but we will export much more likely to France than we would to Flanders, which is in the same country. So that's that's I think one of the most striking things about our cultural differences.
But if I may say, on the other hand, we were saying that it's like 2 different countries. I think that's true. On the other hand, we also have a lot of in common. I think
Sure.
An act like, let's say, Kruang Bin or King Gizzard, if they play in Brussels, I think half of the audience is from Wallonia and the other half is from Flanders. A lot of people from Flanders go to Dour. A lot of people from Wallonia come to Pukkelpop. So it's also quite mixed in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it is more difficult for us, like if I see it myself as a programmer, to find the bands of Wallonia, the not so known bands in Wallonia. It's not always that easy. I get more bands presented from abroad than sometimes from Wallonia to our festival, which is kind of strange, but it's true.
Come to 50 Lab, Tineke.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say then, and that's
I
what
was planning. I was planning.
Just quickly on press, and I don't know who wants to take this, but press and everything like that. Obviously, you have local, like some local options. You talked about some earlier, but when it comes to presenting your band and emailing, is it okay to email in English, or do you really need to be translating to Dutch, French? No, and English.
Most of, yeah, that's it. Most of. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
No, I'm saying, I would say that English is fine unless Julien or Mathieu feel that it should be in French. I know that our French artists are obviously speaking in French, but there was a time, I think, when everybody translated, that's gone. We all do everything in English now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's much less dangerous to default to English when you're speaking with a Belgian, because they might not speak the other language of the country, but most of us will speak English.
That's very good. And so, yeah, just touching, what are the best venues for newcomers? Obviously, Antonio's asking in the chat, and I was going to talk about the independent scene. This is our last kind of moment. So independent venues, shout out a couple that might work with European, well, other international artists. Obviously, we already heard about AB and
Botanique.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think well, it depends on the kind of music that you play, also on your expectations. As I said, there are cool pubs doing shows for 200 euros. There are cool venues who are specialized in folk. There's a metal scene, there's a folk scene. It really, I think you have to look at it.
Is there any way to
act
find more information about it? Like, do you have a list of venues or an organization, Club Circuit? Do they have anything?
We have Club Circuit, and we can easily, for those who are interested, provide you a list of venue contacts and the best venues. Or if you have specific questions for like a specific genre or a specific act, you can always mail us, because I think it often depends on the act and what your expectations are.
I was just going to say that Roel probably has a good list. I also saw somebody asking about living room sessions. I think that has been coming up a little bit lately. There are a few good options, I think, that I know of in Flanders that have been offering shows that are small, you know, and you'll get like a fixed fee, and it's small, and there's a hotel room in there, but they have been welcoming bigger names, you know, often on a day off or on a travel date, etc., or a filling date. But there are a few options in Antwerp, and I think Leffingen also does one, a rule that is connected to theirs. And you know, Barry Adamson played there last week in Antwerp. So and Afterklang did, and you know, obviously the artists all quite love it. So I like to see it. I like to see that a little bit more, because it's a great option, obviously. That could be easily also arranged in between two countries, and you pass Belgium. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving for being so open, especially the export offices, and letting people approach you and ask for direct advice, especially specific to genres. I know that we have quite a few specific genres in the audience that might be interested to kind of drill down a bit further. Please do use that contact and use that opportunity. It's really, really there for you. We are out of time, but just quickly, can I get you all to maybe shout out a company, or it can be any type, radio station, anything that might work with international artists that you just want to highlight quickly?
I'll just talk about Jam Radio, which I've already mentioned, but I want to shout out to them again. Jam Radio is a public service radio that is really cool at the moment.
Awesome. Matthew, any recommendations for people to check out?
Maybe Kiosk Radio as well, which is a kind of the lot radio or NTS in the UK. Everybody is giving 1 hour of his time to broadcast music, and it can be super bright, and you can discover things. And it's also a meeting point in the King's Park, when you can grab a coffee or a beer and enjoy the music. So it's open every day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it's really cool to discover and meet people. I would recommend this as the first tip.
That's awesome. Ineke, any?
Find it really hard. What I was going to say is, and that's not because I'm on the board of Vibe, but what I was going to say is that companies like Vibe and Julien's team, I think it's a bit mind-blowing what they do, and I only found that out properly when I managed myself for a few years. Whereas there's, whether you're an emerging artist or a young professional, and as Roel and Julien said, reach out if you want to have a specific question. I think there's so much information and so much guidance or pointing into the right direction coming from those companies, and it's there. I know that it's not the case in every territory, and it if you have the chance to go to Belgium Booms, as Roel said, at Eurosonic, it'll be easy for them to pinpoint you. Oh, you're looking for the jazz. It'll be easier to say you need to speak to that guy from the folk festival, etc. So I do believe it's a small country, and therefore it's a bit weird with the two languages and the two regions and two cultures. But at the same time, it's also manageable. We all know each other, and it's quite open and helpful, I think. Yeah,
I can tell. I mean, you all seem very open and helpful, which is the best part of it. Tineke, do you have any?
I would say Kiosk Radio as well, because I really love it myself, and especially when you are in Belgium and you can go to the park, it's quite a nice place to hang out.
Awesome.
What I also worked with some international artists is Brass. How's it called again? Brass Radio? No.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, because but then it's specifically when you already have a concert somewhere in Brussels that night or on that, they can kind of help you to promote it somehow. Not always, but sometimes they are willing, or in the past at least they were. And when it comes to global sounds, I would say Radio In is properly the only one in Flemish part which does something for global sounds, in my opinion.
And also, if you're working with very emerging artists, don't overlook the college radio stations. There are some all over the countries, and it's very well introduced people who work there. And even though their audiences is not huge, they know the people around their city, and they will be able to direct you to the right people as well.
That's great. Tineke, if you don't mind sharing a link to the radio station you recommended, that would be really cool. Roel?
Well, I'm not going to mention one name, but we were talking about venues. I also want to point out that we also have a lot of independent.
Guys, sorry to interrupt, but I really have to go.
It's okay.
I have this DJ thing. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Mathieu. Sorry.
Bye. Ciao.
I just wanted to mention that we also have a lot of booking agencies. Tineke works for one. Some of them are independent, other ones are big, but there are a lot of good ones, and they're quite open to international talent. So if you think you have an act with potential to cross the border, it can also be an idea to reach out to them, because most of the time they have good contact with the venues, of course, which maybe sometimes is easier than approaching venues directly, I think.
That's really good advice. Thank you. So thank you so much for joining our session. Sorry, it went over a little bit. I really appreciate you all staying. And it was really, really insightful. We have a ton of links, a ton of things to share. We'll share the recording with everyone who signed up. We'll also share the presentation and make sure that everyone's ready to launch their career in Belgium. So yes, thank you so much. I will see you all next time. And yeah, just to remind you, as you exit the Zoom, you will have a questionnaire pop up. If you can answer it, we'd really appreciate it. It really helps us to make our sessions better. So yeah, thanks for joining this Emma session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.